Duke Frederick struck the medicine vial from his wife's hand and accused her of murdering his finest hunting hounds. The small glass bottle shattered against the kennel stones. Amber liquid ran between the cracks, carrying with it the bitter scent of valerian and willow bark. In front of the county magistrate, Frederick declared Duchess Diana unfit to manage another living creature and ordered every veterinary journal in her study seized. Diana remained on her knees beside Orion, the largest of the Duke's black and tan hounds. The animal's body had already gone still, but her fingers remained pressed against its ribs, as if refusing to accept the silence beneath them. "You know that was medicine," she said, "not poison. I know 3 hounds are dead." Frederick's voice carried through the kennel yard, where servants, huntsmen, and guests had gathered for the morning hunt. His expression was rigid, but Diana saw the fury beneath it. Fury, and something worse, humiliation. These animals had collapsed hours before Frederick was expected to lead several influential gentlemen across Blackwood's northern woods. To him, their deaths were not merely a loss. They were a public assault on his authority. Lord Sebastian Blackwood stepped forward from beside the magistrate. Frederick's younger brother wore a dark riding coat and an expression of carefully measured regret. "This was found in the feeding room," Sebastian said. He held up a paper packet marked in Diana's handwriting. A murmur passed through the crowd. Diana recognized the words immediately. Foxglove, external use only. The packet had come from her locked cabinet. That was not placed in their food by me. Sebastian lowered his eyes as though embarrassed for her. "The kennel boy saw your grace enter the feeding room after midnight." Every face turned toward a pale boy standing near the gate. Thomas could not have been more than 13. His cap twisted between his trembling hands. Diana looked directly at him. "Did you see my face?" Thomas swallowed. His gaze darted toward Sebastian before falling to the ground. "I saw your blue cloak, your grace." Diana had left that cloak in the tack room 2 days earlier after treating an injured mare. Frederick knew it. She searched his face for some sign that he remembered, but he had already accepted the easier answer. Diana had recently opposed his plan to lease the northern woods to Sebastian and a group of London investors. For weeks, she had warned Frederick that the hounds were returning from those woods with torn paws, bruised ribs, and river clay embedded beneath their claws. Someone was using the old trails at night. Frederick had dismissed her concerns as another attempt to interfere in estate business. Now 3 hounds were dead. Her herbs had been found in their food, and the man she had married treated her questions as proof of guilt. "Thomas saw only a cloak," Diana said. "The foxglove may explain what was placed in the bowls, but it does not explain how the animals died." Magistrate Owen Wycliffe frowned. "What distinction are you making? Their gums are not inflamed. There was no vomiting and no irregular convulsion. Orion's eyes show broken vessels, and there are marks beneath his collar." Diana gently lifted the leather strap. Dark bruising circled the hound's throat. He was restrained, possibly suffocated. Sebastian moved between the magistrate and the body. A desperate theory from a woman confronted with her own poison. It can be proven through an examination. "There will be no examination," Frederick said. Diana slowly rose. Mud stained her green skirt, and blood from Orion's mouth marked one cuff. "You would destroy the evidence before allowing me to prove my innocence?" Frederick's jaw tightened. For one brief moment, uncertainty entered his eyes. He could have ordered the bodies preserved. He could have questioned Thomas privately, or inspected Diana's cabinet for signs of forced entry. He could have listened to the wife whose knowledge had saved half his stables during the fever 3 winters earlier. Instead, he looked at the watching guests. "Bury the animals before noon." The command landed more painfully than the accusation. Diana removed the iron kennel keys from her belt. Frederick held out his hand, but she did not place them in it. She laid them on the stones between them. "If you bury them," she said quietly, "you are not seeking the truth. You are choosing a version of it that protects your pride." A muscle moved in his cheek. "You will return to the house and remain in your rooms until the magistrate completes his inquiry." "You mean until Sebastian completes it for him?" Frederick took one step toward her. "Enough." No, it became enough when you condemned me before asking why the hounds had river mud on their paws. Sebastian's expression changed for only an instant. The courteous mask vanished, revealing a flash of alarm. Diana saw it. So did Bracken. The old bloodhound had been lying inside the last occupied cage, weak but alive. At the sound of Sebastian's voice, he pushed himself upright and began to growl. Sebastian turned toward him. The growl deepened. "The remaining animals should be destroyed," Sebastian said, "if the poison has made him violent." "He is frightened of you," Diana replied. "Nonsense." Sebastian approached the cage, but Bracken lunged against the bars with such force that the latch shook. Thomas cried out and stumbled backward. The huntsmen reached for their guns. Diana stepped in front of them. "No one shoots him." Frederick caught her arm. "Stand aside." Bracken struck the gate again. The old iron latch snapped. The hound burst into the yard, scattering servants and overturning a bucket. One huntsman raised his musket, but Diana shoved the barrel upward before he could fire. Bracken did not attack. He raced past Sebastian, crossed the crowded courtyard, and disappeared through an opening in the hedge. "After him!" Frederick shouted. The hound returned before anyone reached the gate. His paws were black with wet earth. Something long and metallic was clamped between his jaws. Bracken stopped directly before Frederick and dropped the object at his boots. It was a mud-covered cylinder, dented on one side and sealed with a tarnished silver clasp. Diana wiped the dirt from its surface with her blood-stained sleeve. The royal crest emerged beneath her fingers. No one spoke. Frederick bent and examined the engraving beneath it. The color drained from his face. 6 months earlier, a crown courier named Jonathan Hale had vanished while carrying confidential orders through Blackwood land. His horse had been recovered beside the northern river, but neither the rider nor his dispatch case had ever been found, until now. The cylinder was still locked, but a dark reddish stain marked the clasp. Magistrate Wycliffe looked from it to the hound. Where did that animal find this? Bracken turned toward the northern woods and barked once. A sharp crack sounded from beyond the hedge. The hound collapsed. Diana dropped beside him as blood spread through the fur above his shoulder. Guests screamed and rushed toward the house. Frederick drew his pistol while the huntsman searched the tree line, but the shooter had already vanished. Bracken whimpered and pressed his muzzle against Diana's palm. Beneath his body, she noticed a narrow strip of scarlet cloth caught around his hind leg. It was heavy wool, edged with silver thread, the torn sleeve of a Royal Mail courier's uniform. Someone had shot the last surviving witness, and judging by the fresh blood on the fabric, Jonathan Hale might not have been the only person buried in the northern woods. Diana pressed both hands against Bracken's wound. "The ball passed through," she said. "I can save him if we move quickly." Frederick turned to the huntsman. "Seal the estate. No one leaves." Sebastian stepped closer to the royal dispatch cylinder. "Brother, we should surrender that to the magistrate immediately." Magistrate Wycliffe reached for it, but Diana stopped him. "The shooter fired the moment Bracken brought this into the courtyard. Whoever wants it may still be among us." Sebastian's eyes hardened. "Are you accusing the magistrate now?" "I am questioning everyone, including the man who wanted Bracken destroyed." Frederick looked between them. For the first time, he did not immediately defend his brother. Diana wrapped Bracken's shoulder with the strip torn from her petticoat. Thomas helped her lift the injured hound onto a wooden board. "Take him to the old foaling room," she told the boy. "Bring hot water, clean linen, and my surgical case." Sebastian gave a quiet laugh. "Your medicines are evidence. You no longer have authority to use them." Diana rose, her hands covered in blood, then watched the fourth hound die because you feared what he might lead us to. The accusation silenced the yard. Frederick removed the key to Diana's medicine cabinet from his pocket and handed it to Thomas. "Give her whatever she needs." It was not an apology. He did not withdraw his charge or return the kennel keys, yet Sebastian's expression tightened at even that small reversal. Diana carried Bracken into the foaling room and worked quickly. The ball had torn through muscle, but missed the bone. While Thomas held the lantern, she cleaned the wound and stitched it closed. "Your Grace," the boy whispered, "I did not see you enter the feeding room." Her hands paused. "Who told you to say that?" "No one told me directly. Mr. Cobb said Lord Sebastian would send my mother away if I caused trouble. Cobb was Sebastian's newly appointed kennel master. What did you actually see? A person in your blue cloak, taller than you. They carried something heavy toward the northern gate. Did you see where they went? Thomas nodded. The old gamekeeper's path. A floorboard creaked outside. Diana extinguished the lantern. The door opened, but Frederick entered alone. He closed it behind him and placed the scarlet cloth and dispatch cylinder on the table. Wycliffe has agreed to keep the discovery private until we know what it contains. Sebastian knows. He is my brother, and someone wearing my cloak murdered your hounds. Frederick looked at Bracken's bandaged shoulder. Will he live? If infection does not take him. Diana told him what Thomas had confessed. Frederick listened without interruption, but disbelief returned when she mentioned Cobb. Sebastian recommended him. That is precisely why you should question him. You believe my own brother is involved in a royal courier's disappearance. I believe Bracken feared him. I believe Sebastian tried to destroy the bodies, silence the dog, and take possession of this cylinder. Frederick's gaze sharpened. You have always resented his return. Diana stared at him. 5 years of marriage, and he still reached for the wound Sebastian had carefully kept open between them. Diana had objected to his return because estate money vanished wherever he gained authority, not because she wanted Frederick isolated from his family. You were given another chance to examine the evidence, she said, and again, you chose the explanation that wounds me most. Before Frederick could answer, Bracken lifted his head and growled toward the wall. A faint scraping came from beneath the floor. Diana moved the table aside. One board had recently been loosened. Frederick pried it up with a fireplace iron, revealing a narrow cavity. Inside lay Diana's missing blue cloak. Its hem was coated with river clay, and one sleeve was stained with the same reddish residue found on the dispatch clasp. Wrapped inside it was a silver signet ring engraved with Frederick's ducal crest. Frederick took the ring and turned it toward the light. That is not mine. No, Diana said, but someone has been using it to make your orders appear genuine. A shout erupted in the corridor. They rushed outside and found Thomas sprawled beside the water bucket. His lips were turning blue, and an empty cup lay near his hand. Diana smelled it once. Foxglove. Thomas had changed his testimony less than 10 minutes earlier. Now someone was trying to make certain he never repeated it. Diana caught Thomas before his head struck the floor. His breathing was shallow, his pulse dangerously uneven. The cup beside him smelled of honey and foxglove. Send for the physician, she ordered, and no one leaves this corridor. Frederick lifted the boy onto the treatment table while Diana worked to keep him conscious. Thomas's frightened eyes opened once, then closed again. Sebastian appeared in the doorway. What happened? Someone poisoned the only witness who admitted he had been threatened, Diana said. Sebastian glanced at the cup. Or the boy drank from the same contaminated supply that killed the hounds. The hounds were not poisoned. Her certainty silenced the room. Magistrate Wycliffe frowned. Can you prove that? Yes, if Frederick has not already buried them. Frederick looked toward the window. The gravediggers had not yet finished their work. He ordered the bodies returned to the foaling room. Diana examined Orion and the other 2 hounds before the magistrate, Frederick, and 2 huntsmen. None showed the burns, vomiting, or violent internal distress expected from foxglove. Instead, each animal bore bruising beneath its collar. Orion's leather strap was stretched near the buckle, as if he had fought against a rope. These animals were restrained, Diana said. Their breathing was cut off. The foxglove was scattered afterward to make their deaths resemble poisoning. She held Orion's collar beneath the lamp. Blue paint marked the metal buckle. Packed inside the stitching was the same dark river clay that stained her stolen cloak. Frederick recognized the color. The Northwick barges. The private landing lay beyond the northern woods, officially unused since the old timber trade ended. Sebastian had recently asked Frederick to include it in the proposed lease. Diana turned to him. The hounds reached that landing. Someone killed them because they discovered what was being moved there. Sebastian's expression remained calm. A few flakes of paint do not prove a conspiracy. Diana has known about the landing for years. She could have planted them. Bracken raised his head from the adjoining stall and growled. Frederick looked at the wounded dog, then at his brother. Doubt had finally entered his face, but Diana no longer mistook doubt for trust. Magistrate Wycliffe collected the cup, the cloak, the forged signet ring, and Orion's collar as evidence. He also ordered Cobb brought for questioning. The kennel master had disappeared. His room was empty, and one of the river horses was missing from the stable. Frederick issued orders to search the northern woods. Then he turned to Diana. You will remain inside the house until the men return. She stared at him. You have just seen proof that the hounds were murdered. I have seen proof that someone constructed a case against you. And still you intend to confine me? A royal dispatch cylinder has appeared on my land beside 3 murdered animals. Until I know who is involved, I cannot allow you to ride into those woods. You mean you cannot allow the woman you accuse to uncover the truth before you do? This is no longer only about your innocence. It was never only about my innocence. It was about whether you would examine the truth before punishing me. Frederick's jaw tightened. This is for your protection. No, protection would have been preserving the bodies when I asked. Protection would have been questioning Thomas before your brother threatened him. This is control, arriving after trust has already failed. He did not answer. Diana surrendered neither her medical case nor Orion's collar until Wycliffe personally sealed them among the evidence. Then she allowed a guard to escort her toward the house. Behind them, Thomas coughed. Diana immediately returned to his side. His pulse was stronger, though his face remained pale. Thomas, she said gently, Cobb gave you the drink, didn't he? The boy managed a weak nod. Why did he want you silent? He knew I saw the cart. What cart? Thomas swallowed with difficulty. After midnight, Mr. Cobb and another man took your blue cloak through the northern gate. They loaded red crates onto a wagon. Frederick moved closer. Where were they taking them? The old Northwick landing. Sebastian's eyes flickered toward the door. Diana saw it, so did Frederick. For the first time, the Duke stepped between his brother and the witness. No one speaks to the boy without Wycliffe present, he said. It was late, but it was a beginning. Thomas caught Diana's sleeve before she could rise. There was someone else at the landing, he whispered. A man in a red coat. His hands were tied. Diana looked toward the mud-covered royal dispatch cylinder resting beneath the magistrate's seal. The hounds had not merely found hidden cargo. They had found a prisoner. And if Cobb had fled to Northwick, he might already be moving both before Frederick's men arrived. Frederick sent 6 men toward Northwick within minutes. Diana watched them leave from an upstairs window. 3 belonged to the estate guard. The others had been appointed by Sebastian. If Cobb had accomplices among them, the search would warn him before it found anything. A key turned in the chamber door. Alice entered carrying clean clothes and a tray Diana had not requested. Her lady's maid closed the door quickly. His Grace ordered me to remain with you. Then he has given me the one person who knows every unused passage in this house. Alice understood immediately. My lady, the Duke has guards at both staircases, but not inside the old servants' corridor. Diana changed into a dark riding dress, while Alice moved a cabinet away from the narrow concealed door. Before leaving, Diana took a small medical case and one of Thomas's blankets. Stay with the boy, she said. If anyone asks, I am sleeping. Alice caught her hand. If Lord Sebastian discovers I helped you, he will not hear it from me. Diana reached the stable through the abandoned passage behind the kitchens. Bracken was waiting in the foaling room, weak but alert. You should not be walking, she whispered. The bloodhound rose anyway. Diana let him smell the dried blood on the royal dispatch cylinder before leaving it beneath Wycliffe's official seal. Then she offered him Orion's collar. Bracken followed the scent north. They took the old gamekeeper's trail instead of the main road. The path descended through wet woodland until the trees opened beside the river. Northwick Landing was supposed to be abandoned. It was not. Fresh wagon tracks cut through the mud. Several blue-painted barges were tied beneath the ruined timber platform. Behind them stood a warehouse with smoke rising from its chimney. Diana dismounted and examined the ground. One set of tracks had been made by a man dragging his right foot. Another ended beside a patch of dried blood. Bracken pulled toward the warehouse. his nose low. Diana followed him through a side door. Red crates filled the building. Some were marked as hunting supplies. Others carried no label at all. She lifted a loose board from the nearest one and found a row of military muskets packed beneath straw. Each weapon bore the crown's mark. These were not private hunting guns. They belonged to the army. A chain scraped somewhere behind the stacked crates. Bracken growled and led her to a locked storage room. Diana forced the rusted latch with an iron bar. A man in a torn red courier's coat lay chained to the wall. His face was bruised, and dried blood darkened one side of his uniform, but he was alive. Diana knelt beside him. "Jonathan Hale?" His eyes opened. "You know my name? Your dispatch case was found on Blackwood land." Fear crossed his face. "Then they know I survived." "Who?" Before he could answer, footsteps sounded in the warehouse. Diana extinguished the lantern. Cobb entered carrying a pistol. He stopped when he saw the broken lock. Bracken stepped from the darkness. The kennel master raised his weapon. Diana threw the iron bar. It struck his wrist as he fired, sending the ball into the ceiling. Bracken lunged, but Diana called him back before he tore open his wound. Cobb ran through the loading door and leapt onto a waiting barge. The current carried him away before Diana could reach the platform. She returned to Hale and unlocked his chains with keys Cobb had dropped. "How long have you been here?" she asked. 13 days. They kept me alive because they needed my courier cipher. That explained why Hale had not been killed. Without his authentication code, the stolen dispatch cylinder could not be used to validate a forged royal order. Diana gave him water and wrapped Thomas's blanket around his shoulders. "Who controls this landing? Lord Sebastian manages the shipments, but he could not have moved crown weapons without Blackwood authorization. My husband did not authorize this." Hale looked at her with exhausted pity. "I followed the first missing shipment here. Every wagon carried an estate order bearing the Duke's seal. His seal was copied. The early orders were forged," Hale said. "The last was not." He pointed toward a small office overlooking the warehouse. Inside, Diana found shipping records, military inventory numbers, and payments made to Cobb. Beneath them lay an authorization for 18 crates of muskets to be stored at Northwick. The seal pressed into the wax was genuine. So was the signature. Frederick Blackwood. Diana read the document twice, searching for some imperfection. There was none. Hale stood unsteadily behind her. "Tomorrow a royal inspector will compare the missing weapons with that order. Once he sees the Duke's signature, Blackwood will be accused of stealing them." Diana folded the paper. Frederick had not created the conspiracy, but through arrogance, carelessness, or blind trust in his brother, he had placed his own name beneath it. Hoofbeats sounded outside. Diana looked through the office window as Frederick rode into the landing with Magistrate Wycliffe and armed guards. Sebastian was beside him, and the moment Sebastian saw Jonathan Hale standing alive inside the warehouse, his hand moved toward his pistol. Sebastian's hand closed around the pistol beneath his coat. Frederick saw it. "Remove your hand," he said. His brother gave a quiet laugh. "That man is dangerous. That man is chained, wounded, and wearing a royal courier's uniform. Anyone can wear a stolen coat." Jonathan Hale stepped into the light. "Then ask your magistrate to verify my appointment cipher." Hale recited a sequence of numbers. Wycliffe removed a sealed paper from the royal dispatch cylinder and compared the code written inside its clasp. "It matches," the magistrate said. "This is Jonathan Hale." Sebastian's confidence faltered. Frederick ordered 2 guards to surrender their weapons. They were among the men Sebastian had appointed, and had exchanged nervous glances since entering the warehouse. "Search the building," Frederick commanded. "No crate leaves this landing." Diana placed the authorization on the office desk. "Before anyone searches," she said, "you need to explain this." Frederick read the document. His face slowly emptied of color. The order authorized 18 crates of crown muskets to be transferred to Northwick under his protection. His seal appeared beneath the final paragraph. So did his signature. Wycliffe studied it. "Is it yours?" Frederick could have blamed the copied signet. He could have claimed the handwriting was another forgery. Instead, he answered, "Yes." Diana looked at him. Did you know what you were authorizing? No. Sebastian stepped forward. Then someone placed the page among his correspondence. The signature proves nothing. Frederick's gaze remained on the paper. I remember signing it. The warehouse fell silent. Sebastian brought several documents to my study 3 weeks ago, he continued. He said they concerned hunting supplies and repairs to the northern boundary. Diana understood. You did not read the final page. No, you signed it because he told you to. Frederick finally met her eyes. Yes. The admission should have cleared part of the mystery. Instead, it revealed something more painful. Diana had spent months warning him about missing estate funds and unexplained traffic through the northern woods. Frederick had dismissed every concern as interference, yet when Sebastian placed an order before him, he had signed without reading. You required proof from me before you would believe the truth, she said. But from him, you required only reassurance. Frederick did not defend himself. I gave him the authority he used against you, and against your estate. Yes, it was the first time he accepted responsibility without hiding behind deception, grief, or wounded pride. But the truth had arrived too late to become an apology. Hale pointed toward the shipping records. The first orders carried a copied seal. After I began investigating, they needed one document that could survive official examination. Your genuine signature provided it. Wycliffe turned to Sebastian. You are to remain here until your role has been established. Sebastian smiled faintly. On what charge? Advising my brother? On suspicion of kidnapping a royal courier, diverting crown weapons, threatening a witness, and conspiring to frame the Duchess of Blackwood. The magistrate ordered the guards to seize him. One man obeyed. The other drew his pistol. Sebastian overturned the lantern. Oil spread across the office floor. Fire raced through the scattered papers before anyone could stop it. Smoke filled the room. Sebastian struck Wycliffe aside and ran toward the loading doors with his remaining guard. Frederick pursued him, but a burning beam collapsed between them. Let him go, Diana shouted. The weapons! Flames had reached the straw-packed crates. Frederick turned back. Together, they dragged Hale toward the side entrance, while the loyal guards rolled the nearest crates away from the fire. Bracken barked beside a narrow drainage opening beneath the rear wall. Diana forced the rusted grate loose. One by one they crawled through as smoke blackened the warehouse ceiling. Frederick emerged last, carrying the authorization with his genuine signature inside his coat. The roof collapsed moments later. Sebastian was already crossing the river in a barge. Cobb stood at the oar. Wycliffe raised a pistol, but Diana stopped him. If you kill Sebastian, we lose the man who can identify everyone involved. The barge vanished around the bend. Hale sank onto the riverbank, struggling for breath. The weapons were only part of the plan, he said. The royal inspector arrives tomorrow. Sebastian intends to present the signed order before you can explain how it was obtained. Frederick looked at the burning warehouse. Then we will reach the inspector first. A rider approached from Blackwood House, his horse covered in foam. He carried a folded note addressed to Diana. Her name was written in Alice's hand. Inside were only 7 words. They know I helped you. Do not return. A second line had been added beneath it in different handwriting. Bring Hale and the signed order to St. Jude's Chapel before midnight, or your maid dies. Magistrate Wycliffe read the ransom note twice. It is a trap. Of course it is, Diana said, but Alice is still inside it. Frederick removed the signed order from his coat. They want this because it is the only genuine document connecting me to the weapons. Then we do not give it to them, Wycliffe replied. Diana opened her medical case. Before escaping the warehouse, she had saved 3 shipping pages from the office desk. They contained the numbers of the stolen muskets, payments to Cobb, and repeated deliveries through Northwick. The order proves Frederick signed 1 shipment, she said. These pages prove who organized the others. We need both. Wycliffe placed the pages inside his coat and sent trusted men along the forest paths surrounding St. Jude's Chapel. Hale remained under guard at Blackwood House with Thomas. Frederick insisted on carrying the original order. If Sebastian sees a copy, he may kill Alice before we reach her. You are risking the strongest evidence against him, Diana said. I am risking evidence against myself. No, you are risking the evidence that explains your guilt. Frederick accepted the distinction. If I must choose between the document and her life, I will choose her life. Diana studied him for a moment. It was the decision he should have made before pride and authority had become more important than the people beneath his protection. They reached the ruined chapel shortly before midnight. Only one lamp burned inside. Alice knelt near the broken altar with her wrists bound. Cobb stood behind her, holding a knife against her throat. Sebastian waited several steps away. "You brought Hale?" he asked. "No," Frederick answered. "Then your maid dies." Diana stepped forward. "You need the signed order more than you need Hale. Without it, the inspector will see only stolen weapons in a warehouse operated by your servants." Sebastian smiled. "Give it to me. Release Alice first." Cobb tightened his grip on her. Alice's face was bruised, but her voice remained steady. "My lady, do not give them anything." Sebastian struck her across the face. Frederick moved, but Diana caught his arm. "That is why you stole my medicines," she said. "You knew Alice could open the cabinet without breaking the lock." Sebastian said nothing. Diana looked at her maid. "Tell the magistrate what happened." Alice drew a shaking breath. "Lord Sebastian threatened my younger sister. He ordered me to unlock her Grace's study and remove the foxglove. Cobb took the blue cloak from the tack room. He wore it when he moved the hounds through the northern gate." "You also wrote the confession accusing Diana," Sebastian said. "No, you prepared it before I knew the hounds were dead." Alice's testimony echoed through the empty chapel. Outside, Wycliffe's men were close enough to hear every word. Sebastian realized it too. His expression changed. "Give me the order," he said, "or Cobb opens her throat." Frederick held out the folded document. Cobb pushed Alice toward Diana, while Sebastian seized the paper. For one brief instant, the exchange was complete. Then Cobb drew a pistol from beneath his coat. Bracken lunged from behind a fallen pew. The shot struck stone. Alice dropped to the floor as the bloodhound drove Cobb backward. Frederick disarmed him, while Diana pulled Bracken away before his injured shoulder reopened. Wycliffe's men entered through both doors, but Sebastian had already vanished behind the altar. A concealed stair descended into the old burial crypt. By the time the guards reached the far opening, hoofbeats were fading toward the southern road. Cobb was placed in irons. He refused to name anyone beyond Sebastian, but the knife, pistol, kidnapping, and Alice's testimony were enough to hold him. Diana examined Alice's injuries. "You should never have been placed in danger because you helped me." Alice looked toward Frederick. It was not her Grace who brought danger into Blackwood. Frederick heard her. He offered no defense. Wycliffe unfolded a message taken from Cobb's pocket. It announced that the royal inspector's hearing had been moved from Blackwood House to the county courthouse at noon. Sebastian had known before any official notice reached the estate. "He has someone inside the inspection office," Wycliffe said. Diana looked at the 3 shipping pages beneath the magistrate's coat. "Then we cannot trust the hearing to begin with the truth." Frederick stared toward the crypt through which his brother had escaped. "Sebastian will present my signature first. Once the court believes I knowingly moved the weapons, anything Diana says will look like a wife trying to save her husband." "Or an accomplice trying to save herself," Wycliffe added. A rider arrived at the chapel carrying a summons sealed by the crown. Frederick opened it. The order required him to surrender his weapons, remain within Blackwood House, and appear before the inspector under guard. If he obeyed, Sebastian would control the first account the court heard. If he fled, he would appear guilty of treason. Frederick handed the summons to Diana. "I can still protect the title by claiming every document was forged." "And place suspicion back upon me?" "Yes." The word cost him, but he did not avoid it. Diana waited. Frederick looked at Alice, Cobb, Bracken, and the distant glow where the Northwick warehouse had burned. Then the title will have to survive the truth, or not survive at all. At dawn, Duke Frederick Blackwood prepared to enter the county courthouse and confess before the crown that the signature was his. At sunrise, Frederick removed his ducal sash and laid his pistol on the study desk. The crown's summons required him to enter the courthouse unarmed and under supervision. 2 county officers waited outside the door. Diana prepared the evidence herself. She placed Orion's collar, the foxglove packet, Thomas's poison cup, and the 3 surviving shipping pages inside a locked leather case. Wycliffe carried Hale's verified courier appointment and Alice's written statement. Frederick watched her fasten the case. "Let me carry it." "No. If Sebastian's men intercept us, you will be their first target. And if the evidence enters the courthouse in your hands, Sebastian will say you selected, altered, or destroyed whatever suited you." "That is not why I asked." "I know." Diana lifted the case. "You had the truth once. You ordered it buried." "I will carry it myself." Frederick lowered his hand. He had no right to be wounded by her refusal. Before leaving, Diana visited Thomas. The physician believed the boy would recover, but he remained too weak to travel. His testimony had been written in Wycliffe's presence and signed with a trembling mark. Bracken rested beside the bed. Diana touched the hound's bandaged shoulder. "You have done enough." For once, Bracken did not attempt to follow. Alice waited in the entrance hall with bruising across one cheek. Frederick offered her the protection of a Blackwood carriage. She declined. "I will ride with her grace." Frederick accepted that too. The journey to the county courthouse took less than an hour, but news had traveled ahead of them. Villagers stood along the road. Some watched in silence. Others whispered that the Duke had armed smugglers, that the Duchess had poisoned the Hounds, or that both would be taken to London in chains. Frederick heard every accusation. "This is what you faced in the kennel yard," he said quietly. "No," Diana replied. "In the kennel yard, the accusation came from my husband. The crowd merely followed him. He had no answer." At the courthouse steps, a royal officer approached. "Duke Blackwood, you are required to surrender yourself pending the inspector's judgment." Frederick stepped down from the carriage. "I will comply." The officer looked toward Diana. "The Duchess is also named in the accusation." Frederick's expression hardened, but Diana spoke before he could. "Then I will answer it before the same witnesses who heard it." Inside, the public gallery was already full. Huntsmen, servants, neighboring landowners, military officials, and several guests from the abandoned hunt crowded the chamber. The people who had watched Frederick condemn Diana would now watch him account for it. Sir Edmund Carow, the Crown's chief inspector, sat at the center of the raised bench. Beside him was Lord Henry Vale, Deputy Secretary to the War Office, whose department had recorded the missing muskets. Magistrate Wycliffe leaned toward Diana. Vale's office issued the notice changing the hearing location. Diana looked at the Deputy Secretary. His expression revealed nothing. Then the side doors opened. Sebastian entered without restraints. He carried Frederick's signed authorization in one hand and Diana's stolen blue cloak in the other. 2 War Office guards accompanied him. Frederick stopped. He should be under arrest. Lord Vale answered from the bench. Lord Sebastian came voluntarily to present evidence of treason. Until that evidence is examined, he remains under Crown protection. Sebastian placed the authorization before Sir Edmund. "This order carries my brother's genuine seal and signature. It directed stolen Crown weapons to his private landing." Sir Edmund examined it. Frederick stepped forward. "The signature is mine." A murmur swept through the gallery. Sebastian had expected denial. For an instant, surprise crossed his face. Frederick continued, "I signed the document without reading its final page. My brother concealed its purpose among ordinary estate papers. That does not make me innocent of negligence." Lord Vale narrowed his eyes. "You asked this court to believe a duke signed a military transfer without knowing it." "I asked the court to record precisely what I did." Sebastian recovered quickly. "My brother is trying to protect his wife." He lifted the blue cloak. Duchess Diana had access to the northern woods, the kennels, the medicines, and the estate seal. When the Hounds discovered her operation, she killed them and planted evidence against me. Alice rose from the witness bench. "That is a lie." Vale struck the table with his gavel. "You will speak when called." Sebastian placed a prepared confession beside the authorization. It carried Alice's name. Diana saw at once that the signature had been copied from her household accounts. Sebastian turned toward the crowded gallery. "My brother's greatest failure was not signing that order. It was allowing his wife enough authority to betray him." The words were carefully chosen. They offered Frederick one final escape: condemn Diana again, preserve his title, and let the court believe that she had manipulated them both. Every face turned toward the Duke. Frederick looked at the wife he had once sacrificed to protect his pride. Then he faced the court. My greatest failure, he said, was believing precisely that lie. Frederick's admission silenced the gallery. He did not look at Diana as he continued. My wife warned me that the hounds were returning from the northern woods injured and covered in river clay. I dismissed her concerns because my brother told me she was interfering in estate business. Sebastian shook his head. A convenient confession from a man trying to save his marriage. No, Frederick said. Saving my marriage would have required me to believe her before I destroyed her trust. Sir Edmund Carow turned toward Diana. Duchess Blackwood, present your evidence. Diana carried the locked case to the center table. She began with Orion's collar. The hounds were accused of dying from foxglove, but none showed the physical effects expected from swallowing it. All three bore bruises beneath their collars. She placed the stretched leather beneath the lamp. They were restrained and suffocated. The poison was scattered in their feeding room afterward. Lord Vale leaned forward. You are not a physician. No, but I have treated the Blackwood animals for 5 years, contained a stable fever that killed horses across 2 neighboring estates, and recorded every medicine used in the kennels. Vale's expression cooled. Personal experience is not official proof. Magistrate Wycliffe rose. I witnessed the examination. 2 huntsmen and the county physician later confirmed that the foxglove had not caused the deaths. Diana placed her stolen cloak beside the collar. Both carried the same blue river clay. Orion's buckle also held flakes of blue paint. Wycliffe presented a board removed from one of the Northwick barges before the warehouse burned. The paint matched the flakes on the collar. The hounds discovered the hidden landing, Diana said. Cobb restrained them aboard a barge. Orion escaped long enough to return to the estate, but all 3 were killed before they could lead anyone back. Sebastian gave a dismissive laugh. A collar, some mud, and a damaged cloak. None proves who placed them there. No, Diana replied. Thomas proves who moved the cloak. Wycliffe read the boy's sworn statement. Thomas had seen a man taller than Diana wearing it while Cobb transported red crates through the northern gate. When Thomas withdrew his false accusation, Cobb gave him a drink containing foxglove. Diana placed the poisoned cup beside the packet taken from her cabinet. Both bore traces of the same mixture of honey and crushed leaves. Alice then entered the witness space. Her voice trembled at first, but strengthened as she spoke. Lord Sebastian threatened my sister. Unless I opened her Grace's medicine cabinet. I removed the foxglove and gave it to Cobb. Cobb took the blue cloak. Lord Sebastian later forced me to sign a confession, but I refused. Sebastian raised the document he had presented earlier. Your name is clearly written here. Alice examined it. That signature came from the winter household accounts. I made the final letter incorrectly that year and never repeated the mistake. Whoever copied it copied the mistake as well. Wycliffe placed the original account beside the confession. The signatures were identical, including the unusual final stroke. A murmur passed through the room. Diana continued before Sebastian could redirect them. The cloak led to Northwick. Northwick led to the missing weapons. 2 officers carried one of the recovered muskets into the courtroom. Wycliffe opened the surviving shipping pages and read its engraved inventory number. The numbers matched. Sir Edmund examined the remaining entries. These record 18 crates. Hale found the same number inside the warehouse, Diana said. Jonathan Hale stepped forward in his torn but cleaned courier's uniform. Sir Edmund personally verified his appointment cipher. Hale described following the diverted shipment to Blackwood Land, being captured by Cobb, and spending 13 days chained inside the warehouse. Who ordered your imprisonment? Sir Edmund asked. Cobb answered to Lord Sebastian. I heard them arguing twice. Sebastian needed me alive because he could not authenticate the stolen dispatch cylinder without my cipher. Lord Vale interrupted. The courier was injured and imprisoned. His identification of voices may be unreliable. Hale looked directly at him. Then asked Lord Sebastian how he knew the dispatch cylinder existed before its contents were examined. Sebastian's face tightened. In the kennel yard, he had demanded possession of the cylinder before Wycliffe had announced what Bracken carried. Diana placed the final 3 shipping pages on the table. They show repeated payments to Cobb, deliveries through land Sebastian was attempting to lease, and weapon numbers found in his warehouse. They do not erase Frederick's signature. They explain why Sebastian needed it. Vale studied the documents. At most, these pages implicate Cobb. The Duke owned the land. The Duke signed the order. His wife controlled the kennels and medicines. You have built a story from connected accidents. Diana met his gaze. No, Lord Vale. Sebastian built the story. He needed the court to examine each fact separately. She pointed to the evidence in order. The stolen medicine framed me. The stolen cloak placed me at the northern gate. The murdered hounds concealed the landing. Hale's imprisonment protected the weapons. Frederick's signature gave the shipment legal cover. Every act served the same purpose. Remove the one person questioning the northern accounts, then leave the Duke of Blackwood responsible when the crown arrived. Sir Edmund looked toward Sebastian. Do you deny threatening Alice? Yes. Do you deny working with Cobb? Entirely. Do you deny entering St. Jude's Chapel last night? Sebastian hesitated. Wycliffe produced the ransom note. The handwriting matches Lord Sebastian's lease proposal for Northwick, he said. My officers also heard Alice's testimony inside the chapel before he escaped with the signed order. For the first time, Lord Vale moved his chair slightly away from Sebastian. The gesture was small. Sebastian noticed it. Sir Edmund ordered the courtroom doors closed. Lord Sebastian Blackwood, you arrived here claiming the protection of the War Office. Before this hearing continues, you will explain who inside that office helped you alter the summons, move the hearing, and enter this chamber without arrest. Sebastian looked at Vale. Vale did not look back. Sebastian continued staring at Lord Vale. You assured me the hearing would be controlled. Vale's face hardened. I assured you of nothing. You changed the location. You gave me crown protection. I permitted a witness to present evidence. Your interpretation of that courtesy is not my responsibility. Sebastian understood. Vale had never intended to protect him once the conspiracy was exposed. He had intended to leave him as its sole architect. You promised me Blackwood, Sebastian said. The gallery erupted in whispers. Vale rose sharply. The man is desperate. Nothing he says should be treated as evidence. Sir Edmund signaled to the guards. Sit down, Lord Vale. I am Deputy Secretary to the War Office, and I am the Crown Officer presiding over an investigation into stolen military weapons. Sit down. Vale slowly returned to his chair. Sir Edmund faced Sebastian. Why would Lord Vale promise you the Blackwood title? Sebastian looked toward Frederick. Because my brother was supposed to hang. The answer fell across the courtroom. Sebastian no longer tried to appear innocent. The weapons would be discovered under Frederick's authority. His genuine signature would prove he approved the transfer. Hale would remain missing, Diana would be blamed for killing the hounds, and I would testify that Frederick had concealed the shipments from me. As the next eligible male relative, Wycliffe said, you expected to inherit control of the estate. I expected to rescue it from a man too weak to govern it. Frederick showed no anger. You mean a man weak enough to trust you? Sebastian smiled bitterly. Yes. Sir Edmund pointed to the signed authorization. Who prepared the concealed final page? Vale's clerk. Vale struck the table. This is absurd. Sebastian pulled a narrow memorandum from inside the lining of his coat. I kept one instruction because I knew what would happen if the plan failed. A guard delivered it to Sir Edmund. The memorandum contained the inventory numbers of the missing muskets, the date of the Northwick transfer, and an order that the final authorization be placed beneath routine estate papers. It did not carry Vale's full signature. Instead, it bore his private War Office cipher. Hale examined the mark. That cipher appeared on the altered transport records I followed. Sir Edmund compared it with the official papers Vale had brought to the hearing. The symbols matched. Vale rose and moved toward the side door. The guards blocked him. You cannot detain me on the word of a confessed conspirator. No, Sir Edmund said, but I can detain you on the strength of your cipher, altered War Office records, unauthorized protection given to Sebastian, and your attempt to prevent Hale's testimony. Vale was stripped of his official papers and placed under guard pending transfer to London. With his protector exposed, Sebastian's remaining confidence disappeared. He confessed that Cobb had managed the landing and killed the Hounds after they followed a weapons cart into the woods. Alice had been forced to open Diana's cabinet because Sebastian knew the planted foxglove would appear more convincing if it came from her private supply. "Why Diana?" Sir Edmund asked. "Why not place the entire crime upon your brother?" "Because she examined the estate accounts. She questioned the northern lease and noticed the Hounds returning with river clay on their paws. Frederick signed whatever I placed before him, but Diana read everything. Diana's competence had made her dangerous. Frederick's pride had made her vulnerable." Sebastian turned toward his brother. "Every time she questioned me, I told you she wanted control. Every time she warned you, I told you she was humiliating you. You always chose the explanation that punished her." Frederick's hands tightened at his sides. "You deceived me." "Yes, but I did not create the part of you that wanted to believe me." Sebastian stepped closer before the guard stopped him. "I copied your seal, Frederick. I concealed the order. I used your land and your name." His gaze moved briefly toward Diana. "But I never forged your contempt for your wife." No one in the gallery moved. That was genuine. Frederick absorbed the words without protest. Sebastian expected anger, perhaps even violence. Instead, Frederick said, "You are right." The admission unsettled him more than denial would have. "You exploited my pride," Frederick continued, "but you did not order me to accuse Diana before witnesses. You did not force me to reject the examination of the Hounds. You did not make me trust your flattery more than her judgment." He faced Sir Edmund. "Record every choice as mine." Sebastian and Vale were removed under separate guard. Cobb would be transferred with them for questioning in London. Sir Edmund examined the evidence once more before addressing the chamber. "The accusation that Duchess Diana poisoned the Blackwood Hounds is unsupported and contradicted by the physical evidence. Her confinement and public disgrace resulted from a deliberately manufactured case." Diana heard the declaration without relief. Her innocence had always been real. The court had merely stopped denying it. Sir Edmund then turned toward Frederick. "The conspiracy against you does not erase your genuine signature, your failure to supervise military property on your land, or the unlawful punishment of your wife without proper inquiry." "I understand. You will surrender all authority over Crown shipments and remain under formal investigation." Frederick bowed his head. The court prepared to adjourn, but he did not move. "There is one matter still unrecorded," he said. Sir Edmund looked at him. Frederick turned toward the same magistrate, servants, huntsmen, and guests who had watched him condemn Diana in the kennel yard. "I accused my wife publicly," he said. "Her name should be restored publicly as well." Diana met his eyes. She would allow him to tell the truth, but she would not allow his confession to become a request for forgiveness. Frederick stood before the same people who had watched him accuse his wife. He wore no ducal sash. "Duchess Diana Blackwood did not poison my hounds," he said. "She recognized that they had been murdered and asked me to preserve the evidence. I refused. No one spoke. I trusted my brother because he flattered my authority. I dismissed my wife because her questions exposed how little I understood about my own estate. I signed a document without reading it, denied her a proper inquiry, and confined her after the evidence had already begun to prove her innocent." He looked toward Diana. "Sebastian deceived me. But deception does not excuse the choices I made afterward. The admission did not undo the kennel yard. It did not restore Orion or the other hounds. It did not erase the servants' whispers, Thomas's poisoning, Alice's injuries, or the moment Diana realized her husband preferred a comfortable lie to her word. But it placed the blame where it belonged. Sir Edmund formally cleared Diana of every accusation and ordered her name restored in the county record. The forged confession was destroyed only after being marked as false and preserved among the evidence against Sebastian. The investigation then moved to London. Lord Vale was convicted of diverting crown weapons, altering military records, abusing War Office authority, and conspiring to imprison a royal courier. Sebastian was convicted of conspiracy, kidnapping, forgery, attempted murder, and arranging the deaths of the Blackwood Hounds. He was permanently removed from any claim to the estate. Cobb testified in exchange for avoiding the harshest sentence, though he received no mercy for poisoning Thomas or killing the animals. Jonathan Hale recovered and returned to royal service. His warning had failed to reach London, but the Crown recognized that he had preserved the truth long enough for Diana to uncover it. Alice was publicly cleared. Thomas's mother received a cottage and a pension secured by law rather than dependent upon the generosity of any future duke. Frederick was not convicted of treason, but innocence of treason did not mean freedom from consequence. The Crown removed him from his regional military office and barred him from royal supply contracts. Blackwood's finances were placed under independent supervision, and he was ordered to compensate every household harmed by the smuggling route. Frederick accepted each judgment without appeal. He then executed a legal settlement placing the kennels, veterinary rooms, and their operating income under trustees chosen by Diana. Neither he nor any future Duke of Blackwood could remove her from them by command. 6 months later, the Blackwood Animal Infirmary opened on the rebuilt kennel grounds. It treated estate animals without charge and trained servants in practical animal care. Alice managed its records. Thomas, fully recovered, became Diana's first apprentice. Bracken survived, though his injured shoulder left him with a permanent uneven gait. Frederick moved into the smaller western residence. He did not ask Diana to receive him, share her household, or defend him before society. His letters contained only reports of repayments, dismissed officials, corrected accounts, and reforms made under independent supervision. Diana answered none of them. One autumn afternoon, Frederick came to the infirmary carrying the old iron kennel keys. He stopped several steps away from her. "These belonged to you before I took them." Diana looked at the keys but did not reach for them. "They were always mine. You merely had the power to pretend otherwise." Frederick lowered his eyes. "You are right." He placed them on the stone wall between them. "I once believed being your husband entitled me to your loyalty, even when I gave you none in return. I understand now that I destroyed my claim to your trust. Understanding is not restoration. No. Regret is not change. No. And even real change would not obligate me to return." Frederick met her gaze. "I know." Diana had expected him to ask for another chance. He did not. "I will agree to a formal separation," he said. "The western residence will remain mine. This household, the infirmary, and all income granted under the settlement will remain yours. I will not challenge your authority again. You cannot repair betrayal by giving me permission to be free." "No," he said quietly, "but I can stop standing in the way of that freedom." For the first time since the kennel yard, Diana believed he understood the difference. She accepted the separation. She offered neither reconciliation nor the promise of one. If Frederick changed, he would do so without controlling the reward. If trust ever returned, it would be Diana's decision, not the expected payment for his remorse. Frederick left the keys on the wall and walked back toward the western road. Bracken emerged from the infirmary and stopped beside Diana. On the morning Frederick condemned her, those same keys had lain on the stones between them as proof of everything he had taken. Now Diana picked them up and placed them in her own pocket. She opened the kennel gate. Beyond it stretched the northern field, green again after months of rain. Bracken stepped through first, then looked back at her. Diana followed. The gate remained open behind them, and for the first time, neither her husband's title nor his regret decided where she would go next.